Tonight on Bridge City News, we hear from Lethbridge MP Rachel Harder and get her thoughts about the SNC-Lavalin affair and if Justin Trudeau should resign. Prime Minister Trudeau makes another cabinet shuffle today. We will tell you who is going where. And bull riders from far and wide have converged onto Lethbridge this weekend. We will explain why. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Opposition MPs peppered the Liberals about the SNC-Lavalin affair a day after former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould testified on what she called a sustained effort to interfere in the prosecution of the company.
Former Justice Ministers revealed the Prime Minister of Canada has coordinated a campaign of intimidation and interference against her to protect his partisan interests as the MP of Papineau. The Finance Minister attempted to interfere in the course of justice. The Clerk of the Privy Council delivered the threats, and Jerry Butts and Katie Telford said they weren't interested in what is legal. And the former Justice Minister referred to this Prime Minister as Richard Milhouse Nixon. So will the Prime Minister stop the ongoing smears against her and call an independent inquiry?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we know that the Justice Committee is looking at this file. We know that members from both sides of the aisle are working together to have witnesses appear. Witnesses are appearing and responding to questions. We also know that the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner is looking at this file. We on this side, we respect the work of officers of Parliament, and we think that the Commissioner should do their work.
This story is not going away anytime soon. You've heard the damaging testimony of former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould, and now it's impacted Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his cabinet. Joining me now is Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Harder. Rachel, what is the feeling on Parliament Hill right now?
There's a feeling of distrust towards the Prime Minister. There's a feeling of frustration toward the Prime Minister. And there's a feeling of identifying with Jody Wilson-Raybould and showing compassion toward her and because of what she underwent. I mean, you know, she gave testimony this week at Justice Committee and talked about a sustained and coordinated effort by the Prime Minister and other officials within his office to strong arm the former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, into interfering in a criminal case. And it's just absolutely horrendous, the story that she tells.
Have you heard from any Quebec MPs? Are they upset as well or in full support of the Prime Minister?
Yeah, more than anything, I am hearing incredible frustration and anger toward the Prime Minister. I mean, at the end of the day, he is the Prime Minister of Canada, and he interfered in a criminal case. He tried to strong arm the first Indigenous and female Justice Minister and Attorney General of Canada into doing his dirty work. And so it doesn't matter which province in this country you're from. The overwhelming feeling that I'm getting and what I'm hearing on the Hill is that people are really angry about this.
Now, your boss, Tory leader Andrew Scheer, says Trudeau no longer has the moral authority to govern. Do you think our PM should resign?
Jody Wilson-Raybould gave testimony this week where she talked about a sustained effort by many people within the government to pressure her to politically interfere in the SNC-Lavalin case. And if the Prime Minister is doing that to the Attorney General of Canada, then he absolutely must resign. That is no conduct for any one of us as members of Parliament, and certainly not for the Prime Minister of Canada.
Do you think criminal charges should be laid against Trudeau and his cabinet?
I believe that there should be an RCMP investigation done on this. And if the RCMP does find everything aligns and that the testimony that has been given is accurate, which I believe it to be, then absolutely there should be charges laid. Why wouldn't there be? We are a country that rules by the law, and it needs to be upheld no matter who you are in this country.
Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Harder, thanks so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
Liberal MP Jati Sidhu made some disparaging comments about former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould. Comments many thought were sexist and misogynist. Well, today in the House of Commons, Sidhu apologized for those comments.
My comments were inappropriate, whether inside or outside this House. It is incumbent on all of us to treat each other with respect at all times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
A few of Canada's Indigenous leaders got together to share their thoughts of Jody Wilson-Raybould's powerful testimony.
What I witnessed yesterday I witnessed strength, I witnessed integrity, and I witnessed courage, something we hold up very high up as First Nations people. Now, having said that, there was something very key at that Justice Review Committee that came out, and I want to key in on that. The recommendation was for further study around that table, that Justice Committee, to look at the possible separation of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice's role. Something good can come out of this because we continually look for processes that unite rather than divide. Continue to look at ways to build a better country for all that respects the rule of law. Not only common law, civil law, but one day natural law, Indigenous law as well.
Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, has been covering the SNC-Lavalin affair in Ottawa, and Ray says the biggest issue for the Trudeau Liberals was the amount of pressure put on former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould.
A lot of political pressure was apparently put on Jody Wilson-Raybould, who had the power as Attorney General to step in and change the decision by the Director of Public Prosecution. Jody Wilson-Raybould said she made the decision not to interfere, but she said for 4 months, there was a lot of pressure, political pressure on her shoulders to change her mind. So, she directly contradicted the Prime Minister here. It looks like Justin Trudeau's government and the Prime Minister are in big, big trouble over this.
Catch my full interview with Ray Fillion as he discusses the fallout from the SNC-Lavalin affair. That's coming up after business news. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made a cabinet shuffle today. PEI MP Lawrence MacAulay is the new Minister of Veterans Affairs. The Prime Minister made the move to fill the void left by the resignation of Jody Wilson-Raybould. 2 other cabinet ministers also have new portfolios. Marie-Claude Bebeau replaces MacAulay as Agriculture Minister, and Gender Equality Minister Maria Monsif will also handle international development. The City of Lethbridge is unveiling its new 311 Customer Service Centre. Offering a single point of contact for city services, the new centre will allow residents to get information about city services, activities, and programs. As of March 11th, the service centre can be accessed by phone or online. BCN's Loris Alexander spoke with city officials about the upcoming launch.
If you have a non-emergency call or questions related to government services or events in the City of Lethbridge, 311 is at your service.
This is for non-emergency City of Lethbridge phone calls. So anything that is an emergency, a medical, police, fire emergency, we still dial 911. So this doesn't replace any of that.
Mayor Chris Spearman says gone are the days of searching for department numbers and not knowing where to call. He says the answer is now 311.
I think it's exciting as our city gets towards 100,000 people to have a simple system where people can access information. 311 is an easy number to remember, and for all non-emergency issues, if you want information from the city, calling the 311 will be the most effective way to get answers to your questions.
By dialing 311, residents will reach a trained customer service specialist who can assist with any questions they may have.
This is responding to the community in a timely, effective, efficient manner, and there should be, hopefully, in a perfect world, and I know that there's going to be ups and downs, but in a perfect world, our goal, I think, here, and I'm sure the goal of the staff here, is that questions will be answered. The customers will be treated, respectfully, and their issues will be addressed. And if they can't get it right then and there, we have the expert staff that know where to get the information and get back to the residents. So we see it as a great thing for the community.
The system can also provide feedback to residents on the status of their request. For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
A recent study out says exercise dramatically lowers your risk of getting cancer. Dr. Clayton Coggino, who specializes in exercise science kinesiology and is doing 3 years of research on radiation and cancer, has the details.
The study showed that patients, women, it was a study on women in breast cancer, women that had exercised and stopped exercising when they got diagnosed had a 50% increased risk of death. Yeah. Those that started exercising that hadn't had a 50% increased survival rate. So what we know is that exercise is very beneficial in cancer.
Dr. Coggino will also discuss which foods and supplements will help fight cancer. Watch for that coming up in the second half of our show. Lethbridge College has arrived on the Speaker Series circuit as Wider Horizons launches in April. Best-selling author David Frum, who served as special assistant and speechwriter to former U.S. President George W. Bush in 2001 and 2002, will be the speaker at the April event. The series will take place annually and is made possible by a $50,000 gift from a local business person.
I think with the donation I've made, it's more than just getting one speaker. It'll be something that they build on.
For students, it really gets to open up the opportunities for them. I think what we would really like to see is the time that they're able to spend with the speaker, the dialogue that happens, getting into some debate and really sort of opening up that free thinking.
Her and I talked, and then she put me on to some really key people here. And the idea was to sort of do something other than the trades, because I deal with the trades in the kind of business that I did. I don't know how the Speaker Series evolved. I can't tell you that, because they did it themselves here at the college. But when they explained it to me, I said, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Fans of professional bull riding are gathering at the NMAC Centre tonight for what they call 8 seconds of exhilaration. The Professional Bull Riders Monster Energy Tour starts this evening. Video journalist Naveen Day, who was on site for the transformation of the arena, and says getting the venue ready for the PBR event was a huge feat.
Professional Bull Riders Canada's Monster Energy Tour makes its first ever stop in Lethbridge starting tonight. The tour features Canada's best riders and the league's top international athletes doing amazing feats. But a feat in of itself has already taken place, transforming the NMAC Centre into a bull riding arena.
This just doesn't happen overnight. I think setup began Wednesday for this event with the dirt coming in, the floor being covered, the glass coming out. So there's a lot of work that goes into putting a professional bull riders event on. When you watch the transformation of a hockey arena from ice to dirt, when you try to wrap your head around it, it does not make sense. And there's been times before where we watched a lacrosse game as a team on a Friday night in Northlands in Edmonton, did the changeover through the night, bucked bulls on Saturday night for the PBR event, and they had a Western Hockey League game again Sunday. So it takes a lot of planning. There's no question about that, but it can be done.
The event features over 30 athletes, of that 22 from Canada, including Dayton Johnston from Milk River, Alberta, who shares the success behind an 8-second ride.
Mindset, I think, is the biggest thing. You have to believe in yourself. I mean, like, you're set up for failure right out at the start. Like, you're getting on a 1,500 to 2,000 pound animal, and I'm 145 pounds, so I mean, odds are not in your favor right off the start. You got to kind of ride with the bull. Like, when he comes up in the front end, you want to be coming over top of him, like getting out over him. And when he kicks, you want to be sitting down. And I mean, that's going to set you up for success right there.
The Lethbridge PBR Challenge is on tonight and tomorrow at NMAC Centre. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
A wide variety of activities are being planned to celebrate Indigenous culture at the University of Lethbridge. Indigenous Awareness Days begins March 5th and will include a resource fair, a beading workshop, and panel discussion.
It's a very important event for us at Indigenous Student Affairs because we're not only bringing in educational opportunities for people to learn more about First Nations, Métis, and Inuit culture and people on campus, but we're also celebrating First Nations, Métis, and Inuit culture. And I think that's very important for our campus community. These events help bring people together. They show the positive and healthy side of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit culture, but it also looks at having engaging dialogue around campus on very challenging and abstract topics like reconciliation, like when we look at the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action, when we look at notions of decolonizing and what that means for our institution. And so having a varied approach to what people can attend and how they can engage with Indigenous Awareness Days, including, blessings, territorial acknowledgements, all the things that we're seeing come out of the TRC, is vastly important for our campus community.
More information on Indigenous Awareness Days can be found on the UFL website. Attorney Luke Arado spoke to reporters today after his client Pamir Hakamzada is sentenced to 4 years and 1 month in prison for leaving Canada to participate in a terrorist activity.
I think there's an important message that comes with that sentence, and that's while stiff sentencing is usually an important requirement for terrorism-related offenses, there needs to be a place there needs to be a path for redemption, and that's the path Mr. Hakamzada is on, and this is a sentence that allows him to go down that path. He's taken responsibility, he's committed to de-radicalization, and this is the kind of sentence that allows him to do that. There's a myriad of reasons why disaffected youth today might take toward an extremist ideology, and I can't speak on Mr. Hakamzada's behalf for that particular point, but it seems to be a larger societal issue, and at least now we've got a program in place to deal with it here.
Pakistan handed over a captured Indian pilot today. He was given over at an Indian border crossing in a promised gesture of peace. The pilot was captured on Wednesday after his plane was downed on the Pakistani-held side of Kashmir. He was taken to the border by the International Committee of the Red Cross. A movie that won Best Picture at the Oscars was The Green Book. It is now playing at the Movie Mill. Here's Len Binning with a look at the award-winning movie as we bring you another BCN Movie Mill Minute.
Hey, more great films this weekend, including The Kid Who Would Be King. Old school magic meets the modern world in this interesting take on the world of Excalibur and the Sword and the Stone.
You're a king, Alexander. The sword chose you.
Why would we help you?
Because you're the strongest people I know. You're my knights. And this is the round table. Quick, Bedders, lift up the flaps.
Oh my god, you're such a nerd.
This is destiny.
If you've seen Transformers, you certainly know the character Bumblebee. Well, we've got his movie this week, and we see just exactly where he started in this Transformers prequel starring Haley Steinfeld. Green Book stars Viggo Mortensen as an Italian-American bouncer who gets the job of touring around an African-American pianist.
Do you foresee any issues in working for a black man?
You in the Deep South, there's gonna be problems.
Promise me you're gonna write me a letter.
I promise.
Some really good movies playing at the Mill once again. A cold and snowy day in our city again today, made for some treacherous driving conditions, but the snow in the mountains made for some great skiing, lots of powder. Weather details and the Bridge City News Ski Report are coming up. It was pretty tough driving around the city today, lots of snow and ice. The police even shut down Bridge Drive earlier because of the poor winter road conditions. There's more snow in the forecast tonight with a low near -27. Tomorrow, a high-pressure system returns, clearing out the clouds, and we should get up to -20. Mainly sunny on Sunday with a high near -16. Monday, even warmer with a high expected near -10. Tuesday, the mercury will climb to -3. It'll feel like spring on Wednesday under a sunny sky as the temperature should climb up to -1. A slight chance of flurries on Thursday with a high again near -1. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 3 and an average low of -9. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1994 at 15 degrees, and the record low was -29 in 1989. Sunrise was at 7:15, sunset at 6:12. Checking tomorrow's national forecast now, Vancouver will be mainly cloudy and 6, lots of clouds and 7 for Victoria. It'll be mainly sunny but a cool -19 in Calgary on Saturday. Lots of sunshine and -19 as well for our provincial capital. Just a few clouds and -21 for Regina tomorrow. Saskatoon will be mainly sunny and -21 as well. Winnipeg will have a mainly clear sky and -17. Periods of snow for Toronto as they should hit the freezing mark tomorrow. Snow and -3 for Ottawa. Light snow and -5 is on tap for Montreal on Saturday. In the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will be overcast and -1. Halifax, Nova Scotia will have a mixture of sun and cloud and +2. It'll be mainly sunny in Charlottetown, PEI and a high near -2. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect a mainly cloudy day and a high of -4. Alberta Premier Rachel Notley was in Ottawa yesterday outlining her objections to a bill that would overhaul the way Ottawa assesses energy projects. Notley wants amendments to Bill C-69 to prevent harm to the energy industry.
Bill C-69, as it is currently written, does not work for Alberta, and therefore it does not work for Canada. It also harms Alberta's ability to continue making progress on climate action, to continue making progress on economic diversification, and to continue making progress on important issues like, for instance, tackling child poverty. I reminded the committee that last fall, because of the failure to build pipelines, our recovering economy was faced with yet another crisis. WTI was trading at over $50 a barrel, while Albertans were getting under $10 a barrel. And so our government, as a result, was forced to curtail oil production by almost 10%. I asked the committee to think about that for a minute. Over in the Maritimes, they are importing Saudi oil. Here in Ontario, you are importing American oil, both at world prices. And meanwhile, in Alberta, we are cutting production.
The economy closed out an already weaker 2018 on a low note. Stats Canada says for the final 3 months of the year, the economy expanded to 0.4%. That is the weakest quarter of growth since the middle of 2016. The agency says the year as a whole, GDP grew 1.8%, which is down 3% in 2017. Stats Canada says the slowdown was mostly due to a 2.1% pullback in investment spending. That was compounded by declines in overall exports and household spending. After more than a week of backlash, Walmart is pledging to make every effort to find new roles for disabled workers as it phases out the people greeter job at 1,000 stores. Company CEO Greg Foran says they're taking steps to support greeters with disabilities. Walmart told greeters last week their positions were being eliminated in favor of an expanded customer host role. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made a cabinet shuffle today. PEI MP Lawrence MacAulay is the new Minister of Veterans Affairs. The Prime Minister made the move to fill the void left by the resignation of Jody Wilson-Raybould. Two other cabinet ministers also have new portfolios. Marie-Claude Bebeau replaces MacAulay as Agriculture Minister, and Gender Equality Minister Maria Monsef will also handle international development. The fallout from former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony continues in Ottawa. Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, has details next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Trinity United Church in Pitcher Butte is hosting a concert featuring the Southern Alberta Flute Ensemble tonight at 7 p.m. Tickets are $15 and can be purchased at the door. Refreshments will be served after the concert. For more information, call Joan at 403-732-5708. Compassionate Friends is a nonprofit international support group for parents who have lost a child either recently or long ago. This group meets the first Saturday of the month from 10 a.m. to noon at McKillop United Church. Parents and their supporting family members and friends are encouraged to attend, observe, and talk about their experiences with other parents. Join the Lethbridge Community Band Society as they celebrate music from the silver screen, taking place Saturday, March 9th at College Drive Community Church in Lethbridge, beginning at 7 p.m. Conducted by Josh Davies, this concert will feature a variety of brass instruments not often seen in traditional North American concert settings. The performance includes music from King Kong, Braveheart, Apollo 13, and much more. Tickets are $15 and children 12 and under are free. Purchase yours today at CASA or online at lcbs.yapcity.com. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The fallout from the Jody Wilson-Raybould testimony continues on Parliament Hill. Joining me now from Ottawa is our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion. Ray, that was quite the explosive testimony from our former Attorney General.
What a bombshell, eh? And what a surprise, too. I was quite surprised because I didn't expect such an explosive testimony from Jody Wilson-Raybould, because when you think about it, she got the green light from Justin Trudeau and his government, who lifted the attorney-client privilege, freeing her to tell her side of the story, her truth, as she said. So a lot of people here on Parliament Hill, including myself, thought, okay, if they're okay with her testifying, it's probably because she doesn't have anything damning or embarrassing to say for the government. But it was the exact opposite. Jody Wilson-Raybould went there on Wednesday afternoon, and she directly contradicted the Prime Minister's version of events. She gave a contradictory testimony, saying that 11 people engaged in what she called a consistent and sustained campaign of political interference in the SNC-Lavalin case. As you know, the Director of Public Prosecution had decided not to grant the Montreal-based company a special deal in their fraud and corruption case. So the company was going to go to trial. A lot of people here in Ottawa and in Quebec in particular, where the company is based, fear that if that's the case, well, the company might go under, taking with her, some 9,000 jobs, not just in Quebec, but across the country. So a lot of political pressure was apparently put on Jody Wilson-Raybould, who had the power as Attorney General to step in and change the decision by the Director of Public Prosecution. Jody Wilson-Raybould said she made the decision not to interfere, but she said for 4 months, there was a lot of pressure, political pressure on her shoulders to change her mind. So, she directly contradicted the Prime Minister here. It looks like Justin Trudeau's government and the Prime Minister are in big, big trouble over this.
But Ray, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has gone on record saying he completely disagrees with her and he's done nothing wrong, he and his government.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically his word against hers. The Prime Minister on Wednesday night, just roughly an hour after Jody Wilson-Raybould was done testifying on Parliament Hill, he was in Montreal attending some sort of party to celebrate a by-election win. Needless to say that Ms. Wilson-Raybould ruined the Prime Minister's party on Wednesday night. The Prime Minister maintains that neither he nor anyone in his office or in the government put undue pressure, inappropriate pressure on the Attorney General to do something she wasn't comfortable doing. So yeah, it's basically his word against hers. The Prime Minister says he trusts the Ethics Commissioner will get to the bottom of this. The problem is we don't know when that's going to be, and we tried to get information from Mario Dion's office today. They wouldn't say how long his investigation will take. And then on Thursday, many cabinet ministers were dispatched to do interviews to defend the Prime Minister's version of events, that nothing inappropriate happened. And now we learned on Thursday afternoon that Gerald Butts, Mr. Trudeau's former right-hand man who quit 10 days ago, will finally get a chance to tell his side of the story. Following Ms. Wilson-Raybould's explosive testimony on Wednesday, he decided to write the Ethics Committee, not the Ethics Committee, the Justice Committee of the House of Commons to request that he be given a chance to tell his side of the story, and the committee immediately accepted. So another interesting testimony coming up perhaps in the coming weeks.
Now, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is calling for a public inquiry, but opposition leader Andrew Scheer went a step further, Ray, saying the Prime Minister should resign.
Yeah, which is something that surprised quite a lot of people, because you don't see that every day. The opposition demanding a minister's resignation, let alone the Prime Minister's resignation. But yeah, Andrew Scheer decided to come out swinging just a few minutes after Jody Wilson-Raybould was done testifying on Wednesday. He held a news conference to say, Justin Trudeau, after everything that was said before the Justice Committee, He has lost the moral authority to govern, and he's got to go. That's what he said on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, the Conservatives went one step further with Mr. Scheer writing a letter to the RCMP Commissioner, Brenda Lucki, asking her to investigate the matter, to launch a criminal investigation. We don't know yet if the RCMP will actually do it, but he filed a request. Of course, Mr. Trudeau is not going anywhere. He immediately rejected Mr. Scheer's request to step down. And so, interesting turn of events. And a lot of people think that Mr. Scheer is perhaps exaggerating because Ms. Wilson-Raybould, while her testimony was damning on Wednesday afternoon, she did say at some point that nothing illegal occurred during the discussions she had with the Prime Minister and everyone else in his office.
Ray, even before the SNC-Lavalin scandal, the polls showed the Liberals were slipping a little bit in popularity. It must be a little bit lower now.
Well, probably, and that's something we're probably going to see in the days and weeks ahead. But yeah, even before Ms. Wilson-Raybould's explosive testimony on Wednesday, Angus Reid published a poll that was conducted last week, which gives now the Tories a 7-point lead over the Liberals in voting intentions. The Conservatives have 38% support, according to that survey, compared to 31% for the Liberals and 14% for the NDP. 66% of respondents said they believe there is a deeper scandal in the Prime Minister's office. 63% said they think SNC-Lavalin should be fully prosecuted over the bribes that were allegedly paid in Libya between 2001 and 2011 in order to get contracts in that country. And 60% of respondents to this Angus Reid survey said they have an unfavorable view of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And that was, of course, before Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony.
And it appears as though the Liberal caucus is even divided over the SNC-Lavalin affair. Tell me more about that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. While Judy Wilson-Raybould was testifying on Wednesday, one of her fellow MPs from Ontario, Selina Caesar-Chavannes, tweeted her support for her. She wrote, and I quote, "Truth is power, proud of you." Now, a lot of other MPs are really angry with Ms. Wilson-Raybould. They're accusing her of putting the government in serious trouble, of course. There's even one fellow Liberal MP from British Columbia who dismissed her testimony as sour grapes. His name is Jati Sidhu. He said that if Ms. Wilson-Raybould was unhappy as Attorney General and Minister of Justice, she should have simply have resigned. He said she's not a team player and that someone, perhaps Ms. Wilson-Raybould's father, is pulling her strings. So those comments caused quite a stir in the House of Commons when they were read by a Conservative MP. Now, the Liberal MP who said that, Mr. Sidhu, wouldn't apologize. And the incredible thing is, after everything she said, Jody Wilson-Raybould is still a member of the Liberal caucus. Now, a lot of people want her out. They want to kick her to the curb. The Prime Minister on Thursday said, we still have to discuss this. They haven't made up their mind. Maybe it's the old adage that says, keep your enemies close, keep your enemies closer. But we're going to find out in the coming days or weeks, once the Liberals have their next caucus meeting, whether or not Jody Wilson-Raybould will be allowed to stay on as a Liberal cabinet caucus member.
Yeah, keep your friends closer and your enemies closer, absolutely. Jagmeet Singh finally won his seat when he took the by-election for Burnaby South. Ray, now the hard part begins for the NDP leader.
Well, yeah, because in the coming weeks, he's going to be sworn in. Chances are he's going to make his grand debut in the House of Commons the week of the budget, the day before the budget. I believe it's going to be Monday, the 17th or 18th. I don't have a calendar in front of me. The budget's on the 19th, so I guess he's going to be in the House of Commons for the first time on the 18th. A lot of pressure on Mr. Singh's shoulder. He won that by-election and won BC riding. Now he's got to try and win over Canadians, and things, as you and I have discussed many times in the past few months, aren't going well at all for the NDP. They're down in terms of support, in terms of financing. And now that he's going to make his grand debut in the House of Commons, we're going to see what kind of politician he is. We all remember his predecessor, Tom Mulcair. He was a star in the House of Commons, particularly during the Senate scandals. He was seen as the chief prosecutor, going after Stephen Harper on a daily basis. he's going to be a hard act to follow for Mr. Singh, who's going to be up against the other two, of course, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, and Andrew Scheer. So yeah, tall order for him, big challenge, and we're learning almost every week that a new NDP MP is not going to be running in the next election. Today, Murray Rankin, a well-known MP who's been around for quite a few years, just announced that he's not going to be running in the next election. I believe he's the 11th current NDP MP deciding not to run for re-election.
Word from the Hill is that the Green Party could cause some major headaches for Mr. Singh and the NDP.
Yeah, that's according to the NDP themselves. We saw some interesting by-election results, particularly in Burnaby South, but also in the Outremont riding on the island of Montreal. That used to be a Liberal fortress, which fell to the NDP when Tom Mulcair was elected there back in 2007. And on Monday night, the Liberals took back their former stronghold. They won that riding again. And the Green Party managed to get roughly 12% of the popular vote in that riding, which is kind of unusual. They're not exactly a force to be reckoned with, the Greens in Quebec, but the NDP say that they represent a threat to their political fortunes in Quebec, where they have, as we speak, 16 MPs. You know, it's a major province for the NDP. And one of their MPs this week was saying the environment is more and more important, particularly to young voters in Quebec. And they identify with the Green Party because their name is the Green Party of Canada. So the NDP say we'd better watch out. We'd better, present ourselves as, a good alternative to the Liberal when it comes to the environment.
Ray, a Conservative senator found himself in some hot water recently after the United We Roll demonstration in Ottawa. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, Conservative Senator David Tkachuk was up on the Hill giving a speech to those truckers on Parliament Hill last week. And he said, he invited the crowd, and I'll quote him here, "Roll over every Liberal left in the country, because when they're gone, these bills are gone." That was a pro-pipeline rally. Now, a Liberal MP immediately called on Andrew Scheer to boot Senator Tkachuk out of the Conservative caucus. He accused him of inciting violence. Mr. Tkachuk refused to apologize and said that all that criticism was basically manufactured outrage. He said that his remarks were meant to be taken figuratively, not literally. And that was good enough for Andrew Scheer. So Senator Tkachuk remains in caucus in spite of this controversial remark that he made on Parliament Hill.
The trade war not only continues with the United States and China, but with the U.S. and Canada. Ray, our country is still pressing the Trump administration to lift those tariffs on steel and aluminum. Is Ottawa making any headway?
Well, Canada is putting increasing pressure on the Americans. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Chrystia Freeland, was taking part in an international conference earlier this week, and she says she met with Donald Trump's vice president, Mike Pence, and she gave him a message, that those tariffs ought to go ASAP. Transport Minister Marc Garneau was also in Washington, D.C. over the past few days, where he also pressed the Trump administration to lift those much-hated tariffs. And earlier this week, what was also interesting, I thought, was to hear from Donald Trump's main economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, who said that he's working to remove those tariffs on Canadian and Mexican steel and aluminum products. So it looks like there's hope here, Hal, that those tariffs might be lifted soon. We'll have to see.
A recent report by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the PBO, came out on the purchase of the used fighter jets we got from Australia. What did the report reveal? Are they airworthy?
Yeah, well, apparently they are airworthy, but they're going to cost the Treasury a little bit more, apparently, than what the Liberals had said that they would cost, roughly $100,000 more. It's not that much, but it's rekindling the whole debate as to whether or not we need those fighter jets to begin with, because the Liberals have said that without those interim jets, there will be a capability gap. Canada won't be able to keep the CF-18s alive up and running long enough so that Canada can go on missions abroad, in faraway places, not to mention our domestic obligations here to protect the country. So they decided to buy those used fighter jets for Canada. And the PBO's report is basically rekindling the debate as to whether or not spending that money is really worth it, because the opposition contends there's absolutely no capability gap. The CF-18's life can be extended long enough for Canada until Canada gets brand new fighter jets.
Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, joining me once again from Ottawa. Thanks again, Ray.
You're welcome, Hal.
Joining me in studio is Dr. Clayton Coggino. He's a naturopathic doctor in Lethbridge with Meridian Integrated Health and Wellness Center. He's also done some training in conventional medicine and has a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science Kinesiology and doing 3 years of research on radiation and cancer at the University of Lethbridge. Welcome back to BCN.
Thanks for having me.
So Dr. Coggino, let's talk about how you really deal and handle patients who have cancer.
Yeah.
There must be a lot of compassion involved, isn't there?
Yeah, you have to. It's a very complex time for patients and their families. You have to treat it with care. There's a lot of confusion that's going on. Patients need advice and they need time to sit down with me and also their oncologist. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to take the time to answer a lot of the questions that they have, because they do have a lot of questions.
I have friends who dealt with prostate cancer, and the urologist they had, the specialist said, "Oh, just go with it. You know, 80% chance you got prostate cancer, just go deal with it." No bedside manner.
Right.
And that's difficult. Some people say, well, that's good because you know where this guy's coming from, he's a straight shooter. But on the other hand, there has to be a little more compassion, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I love doing naturopathic medicine and especially treating cancer, because I have a lot of time to sit down with patients. And a lot of times it takes a little bit for them to warm up to asking questions. Sometimes they come in with lists of questions, and I'm more than happy to answer them, because it's a scary time and you want to have proper direction.
Now, you deal with both conventional and natural methods. Are they both safe when it comes to chemo and radiation?
No, there is contraindications. You have to be careful when you're dealing with natural therapies, because they are powerful and they are strong, and they can contraindicate with conventional therapies like chemotherapy, radiation, and even surgery. So it's best to speak with your medical doctor as well as your naturopathic doctor when it comes to that.
So sometimes conventional methods work, other times the naturopathic route is more popular or more successful. How do you help patients decide which road to go down?
Well, I'm an integrative doctor, so I actually prefer utilizing both conventional and alternative medicine together. I like to utilize the research that exists out there supporting both uses at the same time. I think that sometimes it's important to look at the research when it comes to these therapies, because there's a lot of benefit in both worlds.
Now, you like to use a lot of natural treatments when it comes to treating patients with cancer. Tell me about some of those options available.
Natural treatments. So there's oral supplementation treatments, as well as injection treatments, as well as IV, intravenous treatments. Oral treatments we can employ in a wide variety of cancers, but certain cancers we can't. For example, patients with esophageal cancer or digestive tract cancers, sometimes they won't be able to absorb or even digest the things that we want to give them. So we can employ injection therapies or IV intravenous therapies that tend to be slightly stronger and more efficacious anyway. And then that way it bypasses their entire digestive tract.
That's actually how my father died, was esophageal cancer. He had a huge tumor in his esophagus. He couldn't swallow food anymore and basically starved to death.
Oh.
They even brought in they even brought in a surgeon from Germany to install a metal stent to help open up his passageway so he could swallow food.
Yeah.
But the tumor was so powerful that it snapped the metal stent that was inside of him.
Yeah, we can also employ, through intravenous methods, nutrition as well. So beyond just cancer therapies, we can also help to support vitality in those patients too.
So how about antioxidants? Do they really help in the fight against cancer? And maybe when people also have cancer?
Yeah,
are they beneficial?
Antioxidants, there's huge pros to having antioxidants, but there's also contraindications to having antioxidants. So when someone's doing, say, for example, chemotherapy or radiation therapy, those are oxidative treatments. It's by and large contraindicated to use antioxidant therapies during that time. Antioxidants as a whole, by and large, are very supportive for treating cancer and helping cancer. But certain times you can't use them, and they are contraindicated.
So what are some of the more powerful oral supplements that we can take?
So one of the best researched one is curcumin, which is turmeric. Now there's certain derivatives of it. One is called Meriva, the other is called Theracumin, another is called BCM95. They're typically better absorbed. They're actually some of the best absorbed turmerics out there, or curcumins out there. That's actually one of my favorites just because of the base of research. There's a lot of other things. There's EGCG, there's indole 3-carbinol, there's grapeseed extract. There's many different oral supplements that we can apply to different types of cancers. You don't want to just go out and grab a bunch of supplements. It's best to talk to somebody who's professionally trained to give you those supplements in cancer and make sure that they're not contraindicated in your conventional therapies.
Some people are looking at going to Mexico for some of their treatments.
Mm-hmm.
What are the pros and cons of that, outside of the drug cartels and the gang violence that's taking place?
Right. Yeah, I have some concerns with my patients going down to Mexico. One is that the majority of the conventional therapies and alternative therapies that they're looking to get down there are quite easily accessible here anyway. Our regulations are very strict, and I'm confident in our regulations as both conventional and naturopathic doctors here. I've had a few cases that bring a little concern in terms of dosing when it comes to treatment down there. So I just really advise my patients to look into their options up here first and really look into the quality of therapy that they get down in Mexico.
Now, you talked a bit earlier about diet.
Yeah.
Now, are certain foods available that can help maybe slow down the cancer spreading within our body, or maybe a tumor growing within our body?
There's a lot of evidence and research on diet and cancer. I try not to overcomplicate it with my patients. By and large, you want to eat a lot of fruit, a lot of vegetables. You want to decrease saturated and trans fats from your diet. But
it's a lot of fast foods.
Exactly. Right? Anything that's refined is really important to eliminate.
Refined sugars, right? So the pops,
right.
The sodas that are out there?
Yeah, so refined sugar, in general, we don't want to be afraid of sugar because it's a blanket term, right? There's a lot of sugar in fruit and sugar in vegetables, sugar in a lot of different things.
Well, the fruit drinks too that we give our kids a lot of times, right, for their lunches.
Yeah, but it's refined. Refined sugars is what we need to be careful of. And there's thousands of studies out there that will show that diets that are high in refined sugars or even high in saturated fats lead to an increased risk of cancer.
So does the tumor actually feed off of the refined sugar? How does that work within our bodies?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it can increase different tumor markers, and it leads to either more aggressive, potentially aggressive cancer, or it can lead to cancer. There's many carcinogens in food that we can eat. Even just burnt food is somewhat of a carcinogen. So we have to be careful when it comes to diet, but you can't be overly cautious of eating, especially when you have cancer, because food is life, and you have to make sure that you're eating when you have cancer because it is a metabolic disease.
And our body needs the fuel, right?
Your body needs the fuel.
To fight that cancer.
Yeah. You're burning a lot more sugar. Your liver is burning, going through a lot more sugar when you have cancer. So a lot of times patients will become cahexic. Basically their metabolism is on overdrive and they have to eat. So a lot of patients, they have to have a high glycemic index diet in order to sustain their weight and make it through chemo or make it through radiation. And they shouldn't feel bad about that. But on the other hand, you want to be careful with it to a certain extent and not overdo it, because we know that the research says high sugar diets aren't necessarily good for you when you have cancer.
How about foods that could potentially prevent the risk of breast cancer?
Yeah, so there's actually a large study recently done in 2018, actually on a very simple diet that a lot of people are familiar with called the Mediterranean diet. It's a diet high in...
I'm very familiar with it. Yeah, lots of fish.
That's right. High in fish, high in fruit and vegetables. And it actually shows a reduction of breast cancer with that diet, a reduced risk of breast cancer with that diet. Food, especially with specific types of cancers, is very important.
Now, how about for men when it comes to prostate cancer?
Yeah.
What kinds of food should we avoid? What do you encourage us to eat?
So definitely, again, avoiding, with both breast and prostate cancer, avoiding, trying to avoid red meats, those that are high in saturated fats. Are really important. When it comes to prostate cancer specifically, there's actually research to indicate that certain specific phytochemicals in plants, so especially like green leafy vegetables and blueberries, they're full of antioxidants, and they can actually really help reduce your risk of prostate cancer.
I've heard as well with pomegranate juice and blueberries, high in antioxidants, which are good for men too, right?
Exactly, yes.
That's wonderful. How about when it comes to colon cancer? Any dietary recommendations or maybe restrictions?
Yeah, the difficulty with colon cancer is a lot of patients with colon cancer have difficulty digesting their nutrition. So it's recommended that you eat small, frequent meals throughout the day. Also,
now, when you say frequent, I know some people have 6 meals a day, small meals a day. Would you recommend we go that high, or
yes,
3 enough?
Absolutely. No,
really?
No, you want more than 3. You want, especially for patients with colon cancer, you want to be eating small, frequent meals throughout the day. So 6, 8. What you don't want to do is stress the digestive tract. You also want to try and have things that are liquid. So smoothies, for example. You can put different protein powders in there. Protein will slow the absorption of any sugar in the fruit or vegetables that you blend up. But it just makes it a lot easier for those patients to digest food and absorb nutrients.
Now, can you really explain how sugar and insulin levels really impact our cancer?
Well, sugar specifically...
We talked about the refined sugar earlier.
Yeah, I mean, countless studies show that sugar and that cancer is a metabolic disorder. To me, the research is very clear that sugar, especially refined sugar, will increase your risk of cancer. Definitely. In terms of insulin-like growth factor, it will increase specific tumor markers that will potentially make cancer more aggressive. Limiting the amount of refined sugar, to me, is a very beneficial thing to do when it comes to cancer treatment, pending your overall nutritional status is good, and you don't need extra caloric intake in those patients.
So, Dr. Coggino, let me ask you, how important is it to really maintain a healthy weight?
Yes, that again has been researched tremendously. The research pretty well proves, and I'm talking thousands and thousands of patient studies. Like, these are big populations of patients being researched, that there's a direct correlation between weight loss and increased survival rates in cancer. The higher the weight you are, the worse insulin resistance you have or metabolic disease you have. It's pretty clear you want to exercise and be healthy overall, as well as when you have cancer.
So maybe staying away from red meat, and as well maybe the Mediterranean diet, some more fish oils in your diet.
Yeah.
What else outside of the fruits and vegetables would you recommend?
Well, there was a really good study a few years ago on breast cancer and exercise. And now exercise was defined in this study by walking 3 times a week. A brisk walk 3 times a week.
Like a half an hour walk?
Half an hour walk, brisk, you know, so not...
So the heart rate increases?
The study showed that patients, women, it was a study on women in breast cancer, women that had exercised and stopped exercising when they got diagnosed had a 50% increased risk of death.
Wow.
Those that started exercising that hadn't had a 50% increased survival rate. So what we know is that exercise is very beneficial in cancer. It in every way, shape, and form. Yeah.
Okay, the exercise, but again, the diet, the Mediterranean diet we said, what other diets really work well? Stay away from the red meat, you said? More white meat, like chicken?
I try not to complicate it. You know, if it runs on the earth, if it grows in a tree or grows in the ground, I say you can eat it. Otherwise, don't eat it. To me, it's one of those things that often gets overcomplicated. I have patients that are starving themselves for no reason at all, and that they become afraid of food. you shouldn't be afraid of food when you have cancer.
Well, that's a whole other issue. That's bulimia and maybe anorexia.
Well, yeah, and it's also just a big fear that if they have too much sugar, even in the form of fruit or vegetables, that it's going to feed their cancer to the point where it's going to make it worse and worse and worse. And that's not the point. The point is to limit the refined carbohydrates. So there's many different diets that can do that. Some people will go to extreme and go to a full ketogenic diet. I don't think it's fully necessary for patients to do that. I think if they eat a healthful diet overall, they'll be fine. As you know, as patients need good nutritional status to go through chemotherapy and radiation therapy and even recover from things like that or recover from surgery, they shouldn't be too worried about their diet. They have enough on their plate.
So we talked about diet and exercise. What about stress? How much does that really impact your health and potentially cause cancer?
Yeah, to the extent we don't fully know right now, but certainly stress can cause a lot of chemical changes in our body. Stress has been linked to different cancers, absolutely. It can cause physiological changes like gastroesophageal reflux disorder, which will increase your risk over time of esophageal cancer. It creates digestive tract issues, so shuts off your digestive tract, and can be potentially detrimental to patients. So I think that stress, as in general, is a very common thing in our society today. And it needs to be managed better, and certainly can be linked to different cancers.
Dr. Clayton Coggino, naturopathic doctor in Lethbridge with Meridian Integrated Health and Wellness Center. Thanks so much for joining me here today on Bridge City News.
Thanks for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, eat well, and have a great night.